All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending. Presented by Bodyguards, protection for a life worth living. Learn more at bodyguards.com. We are discussing concern number one for BYU men's basketball as it pertains to last night's loss against LMU.
Wait, I thought they were going to play into bracketology. What?
Had they won, how crazy is that? If you missed it, how crazy is it that, I mean, at any point.
It's not because of a rule.
Right. It's just a technicality that had BYU won last night and started 3-0 in WCC play, Joe Lunardi, per his rules of teams being the conference leaders in the bracket, BYU would have been seen in the bracket today, which is
all it took was a win versus LMU.
Just had to beat LMU. BYU couldn't do it. But why? And what's your number one concern due to that loss?
The offense stunk. 59 points is a season low. Points per possession was .819, which is terrible. You got to be above 1. And even then, that's like the top half of college basketball. So it was a tough offensive night. 2 of 13 from 3, as you mentioned. 10 assists on 26 field goals is bad. In the final third, 3:35, BYU cuts it to 3. But then after that, only has 2 points, 4 turnovers, 3 of which were from Dallin Hall. He was forcing the issue, trying to make a play. Unfortunately, didn't work out for Dallin or the Cougs. And so, real concern there. We knew that LMU was sneaky, that they were improved, that it's been a place that's given BYU a hard time at times. Granted, that's been every place in the WCC. But this was a disappointing one because we felt like BYU was on a roll. They could still get back on a roll. They could beat San Diego. They could somehow pull off a home win against Gonzaga, and then everything's okay. But, again, still, this team is not an NCAA tournament team, obviously, is currently constituted. My hope is that they can be an NIT team and salvage something of the season, because if you don't make the NIT at BYU, that season is pathetic. It's just how it is. So hopefully BYU can figure some things out. But offensively, they let LMU kind of dictate things, and Mark Pope said, hey, our pace and our unselfish basketball is supposed to overcome that kind of physicality that, Kelly Leapepe and company imposed. But yeah, they made some threes, and BYU couldn't kind of overcome it, despite defensively only giving up 64. I thought it was a nice defensive game. You got to be able to score in the high 60s, low 70s at least.
BYU only shot 13 three-pointers. I want to see BYU shoot at least 23s a game. I miss that. Like, chuck up a few more, maybe a few more go in, instead of focusing so heavily on the paint. BYU had some success inside the paint. They had a ton of points in the paint.
Good numbers there.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to see BYU shoot some more threes. And they didn't turn the ball over an exorbitant amount of times. So I thought BYU did a good job taking care of the ball, for sure.
It was like 9 until the last 3:30.
And then it kind of got weird as they are pressing. And
not even getting shots off.
They're scrambling. Yeah, for sure. So the three-point shooting and the offense are the number one concern. I think the thing that is most frustrating for Mark Pope and his players and BYU fans is that LMU did not play well. LMU didn't play well. They played
defensively. They played great. They allowed 59.
They were, and BYU had so many opportunities to kind of seize the moment and just couldn't. So that adds to the frustration. Like, if you just play a little bit better, like maybe make 1 or 2 more threes, then now we're talking. And BYU's getting out of Gersten Pavilion. They're 3-0. They're in Lunardi's bracket. They've won 8 games in a row, riding high going into San Diego, and maybe they've won 9 in a row and start 4-0 in WCC play. But they regressed to the mean of what they have always done in West Coast Conference play, which is typically drop one of those games early in league play and scratching your head like,
That's why I'm not that frustrated. Because I sort of unfortunately expected this. This group has shown us to be super hot or super cold. And they've got some talent there. Certainly they need to elevate that talent going into the Big 12. But, in a year from now, this isn't LMU. This is Kansas State. This is UCF. This is Houston. Right?
Or any of the Big 12 teams.
So if it's tough at LMU and San Diego, buckle up.
Well, and when you look at the resume, this loss is not like a condemning loss for BYU. It's a quad 2 loss.
Right, which, by the way, Utah became quad 1 last night.
So now BYU has 2 quad 1 wins.
That means BYU's making the tourney.
The Cougars are 3-4 in quad 1 and quad 2 games combined, so that hurts a little bit because you had a chance to now push your mark to a winning record against quad 1 and quad 2 teams.
Yeah, all that conversation is relative to the NIT, though. It's not relative to the NCAA tournament. Well, for sure, that's what I'm saying. Like, you say, get to the NIT. Like, BYU still needs to put together a resume worthy of the NIT. And what I'm saying is
as frustrating as the loss is for fans, and it's not frustrating to you. Like, I'm frustrated because I don't think LMU played particularly well. I feel like BYU had every opportunity to win that game. Had LMU come out gangbusters and shot well and they go up 17 on BYU like they did last year, fine, whatever. Now I'm not frustrated, but LMU didn't do anything earth-shattering, and the door was left consistently open for BYU to stay in there and sneak through. And just couldn't do it.
I'm giving credit to LMU for the defense they played to some degree, right? Like, you don't accidentally score 59 that low. I think LMU did some things that slowed BYU down. The physicality. They were tough defensively on ball. They were tough at the rim. They were blocking shots.
That's fine.
They were creating turnovers.
That's fine, even with good defense. So I'm saying BYU just missed opportunities. And 2 for 13 from 3.
Yeah, and if you only allow 64, you should win that game. Like, BYU should win that game.
Especially on the road.
Even on the road, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm annoyed at how not frustrated I am because we've just seen this before. And it's just tough, and we're ready to move on to what we think are greener pastures. They won't be greener in terms of total wins. They'll be greener in terms of TV money and prestige. But BYU's ability to compete in the WCC has mostly been high and resulted in some NCAA tournaments, not as many as we wanted. But certainly this team and this program have to figure some things out in the next couple of years if they're going to be an NCAA tournament team in the Big 12, let alone the WCC. Like, BYU certainly had chances this year. But last night, like, LMU is better than you think. This isn't the LMU that's in the 200s in RPI.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, this loss
is a top 100 team right now.
It's quad 2 loss.
It's a quad 2 loss. All of that rhetoric is relative to the NCAA tournament, which it doesn't. BYU's not pacing for at all. BYU still has some work to do, though, to make the NIT. And
right, yeah. Doesn't the resume matter for the NIT?
That's where maybe some frustration will come in is, okay, this program needs to at least make the NIT. And last night, certain guys didn't play as well as they needed to. Rudy Williams sticks out. Just 2 points off the bench. We certainly expect more out of Rudy.
Well, he's been ultra polarizing because for like a 4-game stretch, he was a world beater, right? Against Utah, he was amazing.
2 Saturdays in a row where he was tremendous.
Creighton, right? Incredible.
And that's the high. That's not the average, right? Let's keep that in mind. Okay, topic 2. Have we already seen the best of the season from BYU basketball in some regards?
In terms of a win streak, absolutely.
Yeah, categorize however you want.
BYU's not going to win 7 games in a row again.
I agree.
Just because of the way that the schedule shakes out. Now you've got 4 games with Gonzaga and St. Mary's and 2 more with San Francisco and 2 more with Santa Clara, and you got to host LMU. Like, those are all approaching in league play over the next 13 games. 9 of the next 13 are like, oh, man, that's a lot to ask BYU to win that game. And so now I go back to my initial projection when we started the season of 19-12. Just go 8-8 in conference. If BYU can be better than that, all gravy. You go 9-7 in conference, fantastic. And that's probably where I come in as frustrated, too, from last night. Because if you beat LMU, now I feel BYU has a great shot to have a winning record in league play.
The expectations are so low right now.
It's tough.
That stinks.
Tough.
Yeah.
The conference is better. BYU is not as good as they have been in years past, clearly. So get to 8-8, go 19-12 in league play. Frankly,
hope you win a game in Vegas.
Yeah, and help you win a game. Get to 20.
And then be in it. If you're in the 20s, you got a shot at the NIT.
You're an NIT team probably if you win 20 games.
Yeah, and even then, there are Power 6 teams who get into the NIT with fewer, but BYU's not in a Power 6. So.
The peak moment for BYU hasn't happened yet. There will be some crazy game down the line.
Okay, St. Mary's or Gonzaga.
Beat St. Mary's, beat Gonzaga.
It'd have to be one of those two because beating Creighton was pretty good.
For sure, but to me, that's
Utah,
it's qualified.
Those are top 30 teams
with
right now.
Ryan Kalkbrenner being out and BYU benefiting from that. So that one, to me, has a little bit of an asterisk next to it because Creighton was without their best player. So if BYU can beat a St. Mary's team or a Gonzaga team, and I'm telling you, it's going to happen. Like somewhere down the line, BYU is going to beat the Gales.
It's got to be Gonzaga or St. Mary's. There's no win over anybody else that would do more than Utah or Creighton for me.
And I think BYU will figure out one of the 4 times how to do that.
And you take them where you get them. Like Notre Dame isn't going, well, we beat BYU, but Jaron Hall was hurt. They're just like, we beat BYU. But I hope that that's the case.
Well, at least Jaron Hall played. Kalkbrenner didn't even play.
Excuse me.
He wasn't even in the roster.
Oh, he played.
In the lineup.
He played. He just was in streakless. Yeah. The win streak, no. It's going to be tough to overcome. That was a really nice win streak. You're not playing Lindenwood and Weber State at home. consecutively, and Western Oregon in a stretch.
Portland
right?
without their 2 best players.
Yeah, that was nice. We didn't bring that up, I guess. But, yeah, best win. Beating St. Mary's or Gonzaga certainly would be a monumental that way because both are higher than Creighton and Utah right now. Listen, beating Utah at home, if Utah has a pretty good season, that might be the best win of the year. We'll see. That was a good one. Always good to beat the Utes, but this year they're actually decent, right? They're top 30. The best way to play the game, though, is hopefully still ahead for BYU. BYU is still seeking that sort of, okay, we know what we are. We've got our rotation. Like the moment you put Trevenell in, you sort of mess with that again. But that messing with may elevate you because on a night when you go 2 for 13, you know what you could need? Trevenell making some threes. Like it may take Trevin a sec to get back into the flow of things physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that. Be in shape, the whole deal. But maybe he's a key where when you play LMU and you need a certain 3 that ties the game in the last 3.5 minutes, maybe you get it. But certainly it's going to take a sec to figure out rotations because he hasn't played yet this year. And I still ask the question, just rhetorically, is it worth it for him to come back and be on this team this year? Or should he save it? Like, given what you're seeing from BYU basketball this year, Trevenell comes back for what? I almost wonder if it's better if he waits. But that's obviously up to him and what he wants. And does he want to be here another 2 full years or just 1 more year? What are his ambitions? What are his... I don't know. I'd love 2 full years of Trevenell because this team isn't pacing for the NCAA tournament. It doesn't look like a tourney team. I don't even know if they look like an NIT team sometimes. Like, hopefully they are. It might not be worth it for Trev to come back in terms of that part, but that's up to him.
BYU absolutely has to beat San Diego tomorrow. Like now the pressure is on. Or it's like, and I'm talking just like it's
for the NIT.
For the NIT. Like it's like, okay,
you need to beat some teams that you need to beat.
BYU, because the games approaching are going to be so difficult, San Diego is a team on paper that BYU should beat.
100%. Steve Lavin, what's up?
Right? And taking nothing away from Steve Lavin, like he's trying to rebuild a program.
I worked a game with Steve Lavin
Steve's
one time.
great.
It was awesome.
He's fantastic as a coach. It's going to take a while for that program to get to a good place. They're not in a great place right now. BYU should win that game. Get to
they are in a great place. They're in San Diego.
Physically, yes.
Yeah.
3-1 coming back, and then you see what happens at home against Gonzaga. And that, again, that's one of those scenarios where I'm never going to write off BYU against anybody in the Marriott Center. Especially this Gonzaga.
In the Marriott Center, yes.
Especially in this Gonzaga team who looked very, very vulnerable.
I watched the whole game side by side.
Last night against San Francisco.
The guard play of Gonzaga is not great this year. Granted, Rasir Bolton at the end saved them, making 4 of the last 5 shots, including the game winner with 7 seconds left. Obviously, Timmy and Watson and they've got, don't get me wrong, they've got good players.
Oh, they're a top 10 team.
Yes, absolutely.
But
they're just not like the top 4 team they have been.
For sure. They're a top 10 team, but there are some vulnerabilities there that we haven't seen in years past, right? And they got to come to Provo. So
you always got to shoot the lights out, though. Like, that's what San Francisco did. They were jacking up threes, and they were making them.
But you can.
This team has got to show it's going to be way better from 3.
Can BYU show up against Gonzaga like they showed up against Utah? And I know Utah and Gonzaga are different teams, but BYU shot the ball well against Utah, and it changed everything. Rudy Williams was the difference maker.
Yeah. Maybe Rudy rises up like he did against Creighton and Utah.
Come home.
Maybe that's what gives you a chance.
Yeah, and try and rediscover that magic.